agenda. We're going to actually talk about the skydive now. So this is everything once you've exited the plane, in the air, under canopy. And I'm really excited that Pete Voss, who is our Skydive Vancouver Island chief instructor, will be walking us through these safety steps. And Pete, I will pass it off to you.
Wonderful, thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great and clearly.
Oh, well, that's even better. Welcome to everybody. I hope you had a long and restful hibernation, and we're all ready to come out of that groggy, sleep-induced beer, tequila screen. Can we see it?
Are you asking if we can see your screen, Pete?
Yeah.
I cannot. Did you share do you have permissions to share the screen? I should make you a co-host.
Been disabled.
Make a co-host. There you go, Pete. You can now share your screen.
Let's try that. Okay, so we've got ourselves PowerPoint presentation. And I like to start it, but I can't reach the controls. Come on, where are you here? Let me try this. Okay, so we're going to start off with our skydiving part, the fun part. You've complied with the pilot's wishes. You've gotten yourself over the drop zone. I guess the first thing we ought to do when the door is open and we're just about to say ready, set, go, have a good look outside the airplane. Quickly looking down, checking for traffic, making sure the pilot has got no last minute complaints or go-arounds or anything like that. If you're going to do the skydive, probably well before you get into the airplane, you should know your limitations. You should have set some goals and make sure there's something that's achievable. There's nothing worse than spending your time and other people's time and resources and going to do a skydive that's well beyond your limitations, or even your ability or possible permission with a COP. So should you be doing, multiple person formation skydives when you have an A license? Everybody wants to, but you probably shouldn't do that until you're available and trained and confident in doing that. There's lots of wonderful skill development that can happen in a two-way, in a coaching situation, with people who are ready to do that. You really should wait until you're capable of doing some very good skills with a B license holder. You can check the PIMS and see what you're allowed to do in that regard. Everybody wants to be on a Sunset 20-way out of the Skyvan in the summertime, but you can really get yourself in over your head if you're not careful. Lots of drop zones in the US will actually make you buy the load. So you feel like you can go make that skydive happen and you funnel it and take everybody out. There's a process involved where you actually have to buy the entire load. So careful what you wish for. Work within your COP. Many drop zones, again, will have some rules about that. You should be careful. Exceeding your COP can be, sometimes a poor decision. Sometimes we want to, try something, but just be sure that you've got a rehearsed, properly planned skydive with goals that are achievable. One thing we don't want is to see an incident, one bad link in the incident chain that just cascades down and makes things worse. Recommend that you demonstrate skill, gain some confidence, at least at the two-way level, and work into larger progressions as you get through there. If you go up by a 1 or 2 jumpers, it's not 1 or 2 times more complicated, it's 1 or 2 times squared more complicated. So you've got other moving pieces in the skydive, and don't forget our skydiving is 3-dimensional. Okay, so now you're and seeing the types of things that are sort of allowed, what you're endorsed for, and what your limitations are, whether it's an ACOP, learning the skills, or slightly higher, and even something as simple as not being in the air for a while should bring you back and put you in a situation where you're going to likely maybe go back to something a little simpler. So just in case you wanted to check, the CSPA website is nicely uploaded, updated, and has all kinds of great suggestions and all kinds of wonderful things that can guide you along your journey. So before you're doing any two-way formation skydiving, you should at least be suitably licensed and checked out and feel safe and comfortable. There's a lot of skills you learn as a novice jumper working on your A license and even towards the B that will get you closer to that skill. If you think about skydiving, what we used to call relative work, you're really doing a two-way with 2 or more people. So if you've got the skills worked to a good mastery, then you can move towards doing bigger and bigger things. Okay, also knowing your limitations. Sometimes you're lucky enough to go on a skydive which maybe off our regular landing area. Even if it's a hop and pop or something like that, you want to consider a new landing area. Sometimes Gord has a beach day and special occasions like that. It could be something simple, going to a different drop zone. If you're not familiar with the drop zone that you've been at, make sure you get an orientation and you're going to be understanding the prevailing winds. Just like if you're going to do a demo later when you're qualified to do that, it is advisable and highly recommended you actually go to the landing area, walk it out, and get a visual picture for that landing area, including prevailing winds and markers like flags and things that are going to do that. So you're paying attention on Skydive at before. Again, more resources. I don't need to teach you the first jump course here, but the CSPA's website is beautifully updated, and there's some wonderful resources in PIM 2B. So now we've gotten ourselves on the step, and we want to do the fun part of our skydive. And should be something like a ready, set, go. Cannot play media. Cannot play media. 1 second, I will share my screen.
Pete, when you share it, just make sure you click the button that says optimize for video use.
Okay. So give me 1 second. I'm just going to find it, Allison. Okay, so now we got ourselves on the step, and that's not working, is it, Allison?
No, you're going to have to unshare your screen that you're sharing and then reshare the new one. And when you go to share it again, so hit the share and there's a little button you'll see. It says click to share at the very bottom. It says when you share it, it says optimize video.
Got it.
And sound. So click that and then share.
So here's a slow-mo of a skydive I did once. I don't think it's going to work here.
If you put,
go ahead.
I was going to say, if you have a link for it, we could put it in the chat.
Give me 1 second if this comes up. Otherwise, I'll just continue with my presentation.
Sounds good.
It's probably too much. To here. Of course, one of the most important things is to stay with your group. Do skydive. So you're in your slot, you're doing your job. Once you get to the formation, that's watching that, you're going to make sure that you stay in there in your quadrant and do your job. If you're approaching safely without a ton of speed, in control, when you dock, you make a dock on the formation, you're going to do something that's not going to impact everybody else. and continue flying and doing your job. Skydive gets to be towards the end. Once you're towards the end, skydive, of course, we're going to maintain altitude awareness. I think the best self. So as you gain experience, you're going to stop sort of being tunnel visioned and just looking at your slot and your grip and starting to expand on other parts of the skydive, looking across the center, for example, trying to challenge yourself to look across and maybe identify the altimeter on your partner across the formation. You can keep an eye on altitude in that regard. Not a bad idea every now and then, especially on big planes, is to look down briefly, get a glance. Worse than coming down to canopy height and realizing you've got a long spot and you're not going to make it back. So being able to react to that situation is always a good idea, looking at drop zone. So you've had a lovely skydive. You did absolutely everything you wanted to accomplish. You're mentally high-fiving each other, and it's time for break off. Stay with the skydive, stay with the plan until your designated break off altitude. One of the worst things you can do, especially on large formations, is to be left out of the formation, give up early, and track away, and now you're tracking possibly into another group. So stay with your group, have visual, do your best to come back to the formation if you can, and once break off has been called and agreed upon at the prescribed altitude, then it's time to take a radial and track away from the center of the skydive. A really dangerous thing to do is to give up early and just track off and not be paying attention. And now you've got other groups in your space. So once you've established break off and you've tracked away, you track away for the designated amount of time. Look, be observant, head on a swivel, wave and activate and be prepared for any eventuality once the canopy opens. Check your canopy, do your flight control check, and then establish your location and decide what you're going to do in terms of traffic. Look for the lower canopy. If it's you, then set the landing pattern. If it's not, join the landing pattern and make your way carefully into the approach. Under canopy, naturally, you've done traffic assessments, looked for the planned landing area, be cognizant of some things that could happen. Maybe you're avoiding other canopies, things like that. People from a previous pass or something like that. Remember your understanding of people who have right of way. You have right of way over other people. They have right of way over you. Camera flyers, students, tandems, reserve canopies, those all have priority over regular main parachutes, so be mindful of that. And also no congestion. Make sure you're diligent with your landing pattern and you end up getting a safe, as Allison would say, your ass safely down on the landing zone there. So we all have these, we all have this skill, we all have this this ability. I think my suggestion is that we just revisit that. Part of your mental rehearsal, part of your planning for your skydive is to segment the jump into these areas and to be within your limits, jumping with others who are within your capability, careful movement within the sky, being aware of altitude, even at the beginning, middle, and end part of the skydive. There's all sorts of functions we want to be mindful of for altitude awareness. Disciplined breakoffs, disciplined tracking, and following the rules about that, being aware of our other people, and flying our canopy, which has just saved our life, getting down safely into the landing pattern, and flaring, getting into the wind, and walking away and having a nice skydive the next time. Sorry, my video didn't work. It was a little narcissistic. It was all about me. If you really want to check it out, I can send it to you, but it's really not that important since it's skydive. Any questions can just be directed to the chat. Thank you so much for listening to the old man talk, and it's wonderful to see everybody's smiling faces, and we'll see you again in the sky.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete. Does anyone have any questions for Pete? Awesome. Yes, technology can kind of suck. I only know some of this stuff because I was on a big Zoom call a little bit before this. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Pete. I'll get you to mute yourself.